All the way back in 2010, before anybody and everybody had a podcast, Wholesaler Masterminds Radio was on the air. Now it's in a whole different feed at iTunes, but there are some shows in there I want you to hear. Now rest assured, we've done our best to clean them up because the originals sounded a lot like AM radio, but they are no less important because there's great speakers and trainers and authors and thought leaders. And that's why in this feed at the new Wholesaler Masterminds Radio show, we're going to start dropping in our archived series. And you'll see that designated in the feed, so please enjoy. Welcome to the only podcast on the planet dedicated to exploring the art, science, and lifestyle of wholesalers and their leaders. This is the new Wholesaler Masterminds Radio show. I'm your host, the founder of Wholesaler Masterminds, Rob Shore.
Wholesalers, welcome to another edition of Wholesaler Masterminds Radio. Wholesalers, I got an insider for you today. I went out and did a little homework, and I found somebody who used to be really successful in the wirehouse environment. Worked for wirehouses. Dave Mullen was a managing director at Merrill Lynch in 2007, and he's hired and trained and managed over 500 financial advisors in his 27-year career, including over 100 individual million-dollar advisors. And his responsibilities have included moving up from financial advisor to producing manager to sales manager to complex manager, national sales manager, managing director. I had to get in touch with Dave, who now owns a company called Altius Learning, where he works directly with top-flight financial advisors to improve their practice. I want to know more about his observations as somebody that spent almost 30 years directly in the wirehouse environment. What are the pros and cons of working with wholesalers as he sees them? And what are his opinions about what we could do better, what we do well, as he sees them? Now, you should know he's the author of 2 best-selling books. One of them is Million Dollar Financial Services Practice, and the other one is Million Dollar Advisor, Powerful Lessons and Proven Strategies for Top Producer. Dave Mullen, welcome to Wholesaler Masterminds Radio.
Thank you, Rob.
It's delightful to have you here. So Dave, we want to learn from you today. We want to kind of, peel back the kimono, if you will, about your insider thoughts when you were at Merrill Lynch, spending your career in that environment. Tell us a little bit. Let's start with a little bit about kind of what separated the good to great wholesaler from the wholesaler that, frankly, might have given you a little heartburn you thought was wasting your time.
Well, Rob, it's not so much different than being a good financial advisor. It's all about building and establishing a relationship and then developing that relationship further into ultimately a business relationship. And I think the best wholesalers that I worked with were patient. They found ways to get to know me as a manager. And as they got to know me, we built a relationship. And as we built a relationship, they asked for the business. And once that relationship was established, I was happy to support them. One example comes to mind of a wholesaler that really wanted to get to know me. And, as most managers, I'm always busy. I never had time. I always had a million things on my plate. And this particular wholesaler was trying to, get a meeting with me. And, I just never really made it happen, to be honest with you. And so I thought it was very smart. He went to my sales manager, who he had a very good relationship with, and said, I want to get to know Dave. Can you help me with that? And so my sales manager approached me and said, Dave, this wholesaler, he's a good guy. I like him. He's one of the good guys. He wants to meet you, and he's having a hard time doing it. And he asked if I could facilitate, an introduction. And he said, he's offered to have dinner, to share dinner with us and at a nice restaurant. Let's have some fun and go meet this guy. So we went and we had dinner, just as, my friend predicted. I liked this wholesaler a lot. We found out we had some things in common. One thing led to another. And the next thing you know, he's in my office. He wants to see me. He's kind of got carte blanche to stick his head in the door and, have a discussion with me about either, something fun that he's got in mind or some business that he'd like to help me with. So, that was an example of a wholesaler that I think, really did a good job of figuring out a way to begin to build a relationship and it led to a lot of business for him. On the other hand, there have been wholesalers that will stick their head in my door as a manager and say, do you have a minute? Well, I never have a minute. I don't know the wholesaler, hadn't built a relationship, hasn't taken the time to really, get to know me. And, my reaction is, no, I'm busy. I don't have time. Or the wholesaler that'll call my assistant and say, could you put me on Dave's calendar? I look at the calendar and I'm a bit resentful because, frankly, I don't know that wholesaler very well or at all. And, he's found a way to get on my calendar, but, I've got a million things to do and frankly, he hasn't built the relationship.
So, Dave, let's dive in a little bit because I heard you talk about three specific things. You talked about patience. You talked about finding a way to get to know you,
yep.
And then you talked about asking for the business. Let's do a deeper dive on find a way to get to know him because one of the things that you just talked about right there is the classic wholesaler catch-22. He doesn't want to make time for me on the calendar so that I can get to know him, but he doesn't want to see me unless I know him. So help us understand a little bit, and you gave us one great example, which was utilizing another referral source to help bridge the gap between the wholesaler and yourself. Do you have any other ideas of ways that you've seen that would work in trying to get to know you as the branch manager or complex manager? How would I get to do that if I don't necessarily get an opportunity to knock on the door and shake your hand?
Well, two quick points. One is that I think that most wholesalers that have been around for any period of time have some financial advisor that they've got a good relationship with in a branch. So I would always tell the wholesaler, use that financial advisor as a way to get to know the manager. Because if I get a call from an advisor that says, hey, do me a favor and spend some time with this wholesaler, it's going to happen.
Yep.
And so most wholesalers have one advocate or at least one person in their office that they can use to leverage with the manager. And I would tell you that I would always do that. The other way, of course, is to offer the manager something. The manager, understand understand that, every firm has objectives, at Merrill Lynch we call them the CFO as a critical few objectives that I got paid on, I got recognized on, I got promoted on. And the more that I succeeded in that, the better it was for me. So the wholesaler should know, from other, his firm, what those different objectives are for the manager, and then offer to help them in terms of reaching those objectives. Everybody today is every firm has big objectives in terms of bringing new assets and new clients in. Every firm, that's a huge focus right now. So if a wholesaler approached me as a manager via email, as an example, because I'm going to read my emails, or left a message, or left a voicemail, or if he couldn't get me directly and said, look, I've got a value-added program, or, our firm has a value-added program, or our firm has some ideas about how to help advisors bring in new clients. Then that wholesaler is going to go from the bottom of the list to the top of the list because he's offering me something that's very important to me and may provide resources that, frankly, I don't have. And it's a topic that's of big interest. So, by making that offer to me, he's going to go to the top of the line in terms of seeing. Now he calls and asks for an appointment with my assistant, and I'm all overseeing him, as opposed to saying, hey, I just want to see Dave to get to know him or share with him our latest product.
Wholesalers, you hear what we're saying here, right? This is all the stuff that we write about, we talk about, that I know in your heart, wholesalers. You're going to get to the manager by appealing to what is of interest to them, not necessarily what's on your agenda. And isn't that so critically important? So the first thing that I heard you talk about was find a way to get to know me. I would be able to leverage a financial advisor who has a good relationship with the manager as an advocate, or find out where the pain point is or inflection point or tipping point is for the manager, what their objectives are, and help achieve those objectives or give some sort of information that will help the manager get further ahead in those objectives. You said patience. Now, what did you mean by patience, and how much patience am I supposed to have?
Well, I heard an expression once. The wholesaler once told me, I don't want to spend a lot of time with the manager because he can't give me any business. And I thought to myself, that wholesaler really doesn't understand what a manager can do.
Amen to that.
Because as a manager, of a Merrill Lynch complex, I had 100+ financial advisors. And I could get that wholesaler into every one of those advisors if I were motivated to do it. Now, you talk about leverage. I mean, that's as good of leverage as you can get. So, wholesalers are always trying to get into corner offices. you have a good relationship with the manager, he'll get you in the corner offices. All I have to do is pick up the phone and say, Mr. Multimillion-Dollar Producer, do me a favor. There's a wholesaler that represents XYZ. He's a great guy. I just heard his story. It's worth hearing. Would you take 5 minutes and the next time he's in and give him some time?
Yes.
It's done. It's done. So, for a wholesaler to say the manager doesn't do any business is totally missing the point, because the manager can get him access to anybody he wants. Right. Anybody.
So where does the patience piece?
Well, that's what I'm coming to, is that you don't build a relationship with the manager overnight. You don't go in and, the first time you see him, all of a sudden he's going to start calling his big producers. You got to earn the right. And you earn that right by being a partner, by providing him with resources that your firm offers that can help him with his objectives. You invest time with that manager. You find out the manager likes to play golf, and you put a golf outing together. He likes to fly fish. You organize something like that. He likes a Major League Baseball game. You give him tickets. You get to know what his just like an FA and a client. You get to know what their interests are, both professionally and personally, and you begin to build that. And I would tell you that doesn't happen overnight. And it's worth spending every bit of time you can on understanding the most important client you have in a branch is the manager.
So, Dave, I want to go to this last point in the time we have remaining, and that is this notion of asking for the business. So, some wholesalers may be a little reticent to close on the manager. Heck, there's wholesalers listening to this that are reticent to close, period, but that's a whole separate podcast. Talk to me about this notion of asking for the business with a manager. Is there an elegant way to do it? Is there an acceptable way to do it? How should I approach this?
Well, in my view, you ask for something after you've given something. I mean, that's just how I think it works, is that, a wholesaler provides a manager with some resources. They help sponsor an event. They help sponsor a seminar. They bring in a value-add speaker. They bring some internal resources that are valuable to the manager. And they give. And then after the give, there's a debrief meeting. And the wholesaler sits down and says, clearly, Dave, if you're talking to me, I made a commitment to your office. I have a limited budget, and I use that budget to support you. And while I know that, there are a lot of, funds out there, we all have great stories, I believe that I've earned the right to tell you my story, or I've earned the right, or I hope I've earned the right, or I hope that you're open to seeing that, you I've made a good faith deposit in your office. I'd like the opportunity to really share with you why I think that our story is a compelling one that you and your FA should know about. And I have to tell you, as a manager, Rob, if a wholesaler said to me that, I totally get it. I'm a smart guy. I know that he just spent some money to help me. I know he made a difference in my office, and so he's basically doing what I'm telling my advisors to do.
I was going to say, part of what we tend to lose sight of as wholesalers is we tend to lose sight of the fact that, everybody's aware of this finely choreographed dance that we're doing with the advisors that we serve, right?
Yeah.
This is not mysterious. I have a mission to raise assets. You have a mission to raise assets, get more clients,
right,
get more product. We're kind of all pulling on the same end of the rope, just maybe from a different fragmented angle. So I hear you loud and clear. It's not a mystery that a close might be coming.
It's absolutely not a mystery, and the manager expects it. They know that if the wholesaler doesn't ask for it, he's absolutely leaving opportunity on the table.
Wholesalers, you hear that? Let's just close it right up. I want to just give you an opportunity to tell us about the book you're writing, because you mentioned you're on a third one. What's the new book called?
Yeah, so the new book it's actually the second edition of the first book, Rob. It's the $1 Million Financial Services Practice, and it's coming out in February. And it's my it's the second edition, and my publisher told me to get a second edition I have to change 30% of the first to qualify. And I thought, well, that's an easy way to write a third book. And as it turned out, I did a lot more than 30%. So I think that I've updated it in a significant way. It's been 5 years since I wrote the first book and the $1 Million Financial Services Practice. So I think that there's a lot of new updated content.
Great.
That would be valuable for people that want to know more about practice management.
Also, if you want to know more about Dave Mullen or about Altius Learning, which is the new name of his firm, formerly known as LearnTactix. Head out to the website. We'll link up the book. We'll link up his website. Dave Mullen, thank you for joining us at Wholesaler Masterminds Radio.
You're welcome, Rob. I was glad to do it.
Wholesalers, be sure to come back for our next episode of Wholesaler Masterminds Radio.
It was a heated debate. On one side of the argument was the national sales manager who put his foot down and said, no, we will not allow schedulers to do the work wholesalers should be doing. On the other side of the argument was the long-tenured, successful wholesaler who argued that having a scheduler was a huge efficiency and productivity gain for her business. So, who was right? Well, they both were. At Wholesaler Mastermind Schedulers, we believe that the first contact to schedule a meeting with a prospective advisor or COI should most effectively come from you, as your voice should be the first that they hear. We also believe that for your existing advisor clients, we can save you a ton of time and make you much more effective by letting us do the scheduling. To learn more about Wholesaler Mastermind Schedulers, visit us at wmmschedulers.com.